Baby, you know what time it is.
Now, what time is it?
It's Studio Johnny Q time.
Oh, yeah?
That means it is time to drop your nerd drawers, baby. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm sure it's sexy.
It sure sounds sexy. Hail and well met, fellow time travelers. Johnny Q here in Studio Johnny Q. I am the Loof Goof, and we have with us, of course, because it's addition through distraction, we have Randy coming through the Computron. You there, Randy?
Hello.
Hey.
What's up?
Good to hear you, my friend. 1 second.
You as well.
Getting some notifications. All right, so let us take a look. Thanks everybody for tuning in. One thing is I do have to actually work on posting our Instagram. I try to post an Instagram before we go live, and my phone was dead, so I just booting up my phone. So I'll try to take care of that. At the beginning, we will be talking about DM hangover, because that's what we do the day after D&D session is we have a little DM hangover. So we'll be going through that. We'll be reviewing our board and reviewing last night's session. Probably talking a little bit about movie night, next movie night that we have up. Review of where we're at on our march to our first 50. Our mental health minute topic today is that self-sabotage is real. Believe the hype. And yeah, and then crafting. I'm not sure, we may end up breaking our board down today and then putting back our crafting stuff. And if we do that, Ring of Spores, Furion, the druid, he has a spell that he uses, and so I thought it'd be cool to make that item since we'll be using it frequently. So I think that's what I have for today's agenda, plus anything else that Randy adds, which is always a lot. He has the secret sauce and our sandwich. How you doing today, brother?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. Last couple of days, I've actually had some sleep, which is
Nice.
been interesting.
Yeah, I'm having some weird shifting of the sleep schedule going on. Usually it's all over the place, but it had been for like the last week, maybe last few days at least. Waking up very early and getting a lot done right off the bat. Just staying up, not drifting back to sleep, not being able to really. Just waking up like fully at like 3:30 or 4:30 a.m. and just, all right, let's get stuff done.
Yeah, I've had those moments before. It's just less like, well, we're here and we can just keep denying the inevitable, or we can try to redeem the time, for the days are evil. Yeah. So, but you say is that what you're on now? Is that the schedule you're kind of on now? Is that mixy matchy?
Yeah.
What?
Because of staying up for D&D, for the D&D stream last night, I ended up going to bed a little later than I had been the last few days, but so I woke up slightly later today, but still it was pretty early. And I immediately like, oh yeah, let's make this pizza dough or whatever.
You woke up at 4 instead of 3:30?
Yeah, basically. Like 5:30 instead of 4:30 or 3:30.
Nice. All right, I'm just doing a little bit of cleanup here of our workspace, getting all tidied up. All right, so let's hop right into it. So again, welcome everybody who is with the show. Please be sure to smash all those buttons which are relevant to this situation: the likes, the share, the subscribes, commenting, telling us how you love us, tell us how much you hate us, tell us how much you're indifferent towards us. That would be
I am
awesome.
so indifferent. I am going to go on a 10-minute diatribe in text form about how indifferent I am.
Yes. In all of my years, I have never encountered a situation which has made me feel so completely indifferent.
That I feel compelled to expound upon it for.
Yeah, and then at what point do you do it to where you're no longer indifferent, right? I think like at that point you've already started to not become indifferent. Your indifference, my indifference is so strong, it's drawn me to the dark side.
I'm exercising my indifference.
That's right. Expunging the evil within. All right. So, got a shot here of our craft wagon. The craft wagon. The sun wagon.
The what wagon?
The sin wagon. I think.
Oh.
I think the Dixie Chicks had a song called Sin Wagon. Right.
That wagon they be dragging is the sin wagon.
Yeah, oh yeah, that wagon be dragging you straight to hell. All that sinning and such. That sin wagon. All right, I like that sin wagon you've been dragging. But I'm happy with this piece. I gotta say, feeling pretty good about it. We have chosen to abandon our efforts in it because you can't call anything really complete. But yeah, that's looking good. And so he's on top here. Go ahead.
I'm developing a bit of an issue with that term. Like, it has a negative connotation, and this is not meant in a negative way.
What's that?
Abandonment.
Oh yeah,
has a negative connotation. So it sounds like you're speaking negatively, but you're not. It's not a negative term in the sense.
The negative is the reason that it's abandoned is it's to speak to the emotional tearing that you feel to have to walk away from it. That's what you feel. You feel that you've abandoned it, and you have to embrace that it is your job to kick it out of the nest. And yes, I guess where it isn't abandonment, that's speaking to the feeling.
Fly free.
Yeah.
Sin wagon.
I don't want to let you go, my little sun wagon, but I have to.
No, you're gonna have an empty nest syndrome.
Exactly. And I told you how much I hated that show, Empty Nest, so we don't want to go there. Full circle, because there's only so many data points in the simulation.
I think I liked it for the first few seasons anyway. I think it had way more seasons than I realized it did, so I don't think I think
it literally went for at least 10 years, I think, right?
It was like 8 or so, I think.
Yeah, that's nuts.
7 or 8, I think.
And then yet, we couldn't even Firefly.
That doesn't compute at all.
Firefly didn't get. We had 13 episodes. Yeah. All right. Whatever. The way things are. All right. So I want to think here when we talk about our DM hangover. I suppose we should probably review events of last night's session. And thanks again, man, for hopping on and participating in chat. I was doing a lot of screens where I wasn't looking at the chat, but I could see that every time I was flipping back to a screen that you were being very lively. So I know that always helps, and everybody's kind of expressed that they enjoy the chat feature because they can goof around but yet not derail the me essentially. And I when I've been playing in some of these remote sessions, I agree, I found that to be a fun outlet. So thanks for being on and staying up past your bedtime and participating. I'm looking forward to having you actually start playing here. All right, so let's take a look here. If we change, let me see here.
I'm gonna mess with your head a little bit. There is one thing that I would consider doing before your final abandonment of the wagon. Do you want to know what that is?
Sure, please.
Consider distressing the curtains a little bit.
Yeah.
Dyeing them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
putting some sort of light wash on or something.
Yeah, okay. I had been considering that and thought maybe, but yeah, because everything
Just
else
because
is everything else is so
they're so starkly
I agree.
standing out so vividly from the rest.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a can do, my friend.
Nice.
Yeah. I think I'll do that and then do the end caps as well, and then if I'm going to do that, probably these brassy bits here, so maybe I'll tone those down. So yeah, that's that's can do. And I wouldn't mind hitting if I'm going to have the black wash off. I guess this is why I'm having attachment issues.
Hard to let go.
Yeah.
But that's fine too. You can always come back and be like, you know what? I think I add this extra little element now, or change this up.
The problem is if you don't, you become George Lucas, and nobody wants to see that. Sometimes.
Let's not go too far.
When you've released it to the public, it is now consumable for the public. But yeah, actually, I think I am going to do something with those drapes. and that's just something that we can do, just real simple. But just throw a wash on it, and it might get sealed too. I might need to throw a sealer on it as well. But
have you have some conflicting views on that topic a bit?
Which topic?
Of like of
abandoning art and coming back to it. You put it
into the main. It's now, it's okay for other people to do their thing to it, versus who do you think you are to be able to say, oh, this should be this way, and mess with something that was somebody else's creation in a way.
Well, I was saying that once you release Star Wars, that you shouldn't do another version of it, and then more specifically,
it's a bit different.
You shouldn't prevent the original from being seen as if it never existed.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking
about.
But
I don't know. If it is his intellectual property and it wasn't what he wanted it to be, I don't know. It's a
the thing is that there were people who won awards for their special effects that you can't see because he's removed them, and they have no way of even showing that. So it's not. That's the thing too, especially with the movie. It's not him. Star Wars, in a lot of ways, succeeded despite George Lucas, not because of George Lucas. And it's very much. I mean, you look at how long it takes to roll those credits, all those names. There are a lot of people who have to have their fingers in that, and it's disrespectful to all those other artists besides just him. It's Star Wars. Whether he owns it and has the right to do it isn't the point. It's whether he should do it. And he actually, there's a
if he's cutting people's names out that were given credit previously and now are not, then that's
they may be still be given credit, but you can't see their work.
Well, that happens a lot though. Just in the cutting room floor, like a lot of stuff, there might be a lot of work that's put in. Even actors who have lines and stuff maybe cut out entire scenes. All the work that went into that.
Yeah, but I'm saying it'd be like, if you had a play, right, that you performed in and you won an award for it, but they did a re-release of it, and now they've made it impossible for anybody to see the movie for which you actually performed. They removed all your performances, you know what I mean? And now nobody's even allowed to see them. They're refusing to anybody see the performances that you were in.
Well, that's I get where you're going. Stage production's a little different in that unless it's recorded, which obviously they didn't used to be, and a lot of them still aren't, you only get the one performance or the one set of performances. And they're often shown again with a different cast. So
but I'm saying like
unless it's recorded,
right? I'm saying like if this is a movie,
we're going to destroy these recordings. Yeah.
And the thing that's really funny is that when they were doing the colorization of the Turner classic movies, they were colorizing all these old films. He went before Congress and testified about how the originals needed to be preserved because they're cultural artifacts. So
maybe you did preserve them, but
so
I see where you're going.
So it's just like, not only is this my view, this was his kind of view that he portrayed in front of Congress when it came to somebody else's work. and talking about the cultural impact, and you're going to talk about that Star Wars doesn't have a cultural impact, and that the originals don't need. It's like, okay.
Well, then you
So-
have what exactly did he mean by that? Was he talking about nobody, including the original creator, being able to do anything with it, or was he talking about somebody else doing something else?
He wasn't
than
talking
the
about
original
preventing
creator?
somebody else from doing it. He was just talking about preserving the originals and how like the originals need to be preserved in like the Library of Congress or something like that, and that we should have
Okay.
access to those. That just because Turner now owns all these old movies, that the only versions of them should not be these colorized versions, and
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter that he owns them, that there's a ownership because of the cultural impact or something along those lines. There's a real interesting documentary called The People versus George Lucas, I think is where I gleaned a lot of this information, and it discusses a lot of it. But so if you want
I
to
think
do your
within
own
his
fact
mind
finding,
there
which
is a
we always
distinction there.
yeah, I'm sure in his mind it makes complete sense, but
Yeah.
And then now it's weird though, because it's now, I don't think it's him that's blocking it. I think it's I think it was a thing of ownership between Fox and Lucasfilms and Disney and all these people now. But I think that now Disney owns Fox, and so I think that may have resolved that issue. So it's just, I think that now it's this point that whoever owns it has just chosen not to do it. But I don't know how you couldn't, because that is just such a moneymaker. Like, that you wouldn't say, hey, we're going to release 4K versions of the originals. Like, those aren't going to sell like a cajillion copies. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems that there might be something between parties, but there again, you can do your own fact finding. I've only dipped my toe in the exploring why.
Yeah, there's so much. They could make so much money by releasing those in various formats and with additional commentaries about the differences thereof and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a whole
the other thing was if they were going to do a
minefield right there.
because Disney, the only way you can see 4K versions of like Star Wars, of any version of them, is through Disney Plus. And so that would have been a great selling point for them, is they could have said, hey, the only way you can see the originals are through Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So if they had that ability to do that, if that was Disney's ownership ability to do that, you would think that would have been a great time for them to do it. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's up with all of that, but anyways, I digress. All right. So, talking about our board, last night we started the episode with a visit from everybody's fan favorite, Flutie. Flutie, the Festivus font, and I was pleased that I was actually able to find Flutie, and last minute notice. I have a tray upstairs that I try to keep NPCs when they come into the world. But go ahead.
Nice. Yeah, you need to give him his own little diorama.
Oh yeah.
That you keep him in.
And yeah, and I may need to get a new. I might need to get a Flutie, a Flutie character, and the Flutie comes and he gives gifts, and let's see if we can get a shot of Flutie over here, and so he can interrupt time space and put you in a time space bubble and interact with you at any moment, and so he go ahead.
So he's like Krampus's cousin or something.
Yeah, I think so. I think that I think that's I think that Krampus is definitely. I'm reading the Sandman graphic novels, right? And so you've got all the D's. You've got Dream, you've got Death, and you got Destiny. I think that they're all siblings. And then you've got
the stripper. Destiny?
No, same thing, just different.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then you have the under tiers, which is like Delirium, Desire. There might be one or two others, I can't remember. But it's they're kind of like these timeless immortals, but not immortals, and so it's kind of thinking about Flutie and Krampus as being related totally jives with the way my mind has been in this Sandman Dream World thing. I just finished the second graphic novel, which is called The Doll's House. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. They're coming out with an audiobook rendition based on Sandman that I think Neil Gaiman's doing the audio play for, and a lot of good names are attached to it. So in preparation, I wanted to get boned up on my Sandman knowledge.
Nice.
All right, but anyways, so maybe we may have to find our own Flutie Fawn figure and paint him up. He might deserve his own rendition. But anyway, so he came and stopped time space, and he gave gifts, and just out of just to talk meta a little bit, when I was doing some item review, we were using the D&D Beyond and adding some of the custom items to the characters. I was able to go in and use it to, you basically take an item as a template and then you can modify it and make it a custom item, and then it's available in the search. So that's pretty cool. So I took some of their items that Flutie had previously had given them, and realizing that it felt a little, that Nick felt a little underbalanced. So he needed to have a gift be delivered, I thought. And so we kind of went through and hand selected, and he has Cloak of the Elven Kind as an item that was delivered. And then for the other players, they got to roll against the official DMG, Dungeon Master Guide, tables for some gifts that were delivered their way. And what I basically did was, for each player, I just rolled 3 sets of D100, which is 2D10s. And that gave me kind of an overall feel for what their values were. And actually, it might have been 20s. I don't know, whatever it was. I rolled 3 sets of dice for each one, and that gave me an overall sense of which of the tables they should draw from, because there's 9 tables, I think it is. And each of the tables increasingly is in theory better. So it's this real weird architecture that I think is just, I think it's just inherited from previous versions, them trying to keep previous versions in it. But so, yeah, and so they got to, then once I used that to determine which of the 9 tables, and I did that before the game started. And then they got to roll a D100, and that told me which item that they got. And I'm trying to think of what the items were that they.
What does that make me think of? When you say 9 tables, it makes me think of something like a Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, like Sansusa, the 9 tables.
It does just like, or like tables are almost like tablets, It was written upon the 9 tables that it was foretold that once they brought the 9 tables together. You mean like at a Shoney's where everybody's like bringing the tables together? No, it's not like that at all. Keep your smorgasbord anecdote out of here. Because, they can accommodate parties of all sizes there. Please stop talking about Shoney's.
Can we get a private room for that?
Let's see. So we had the Cloak of Elven Kind. That was what he got. I don't think I've ever been to a Shoney's. Do they even have those anymore? I don't know. Maybe not. I know they still have big boys. I didn't want it last year. So, one of the items, and actually the one who got to roll off the best table was Dart, and she rolled, and I think she felt a little underwhelmed by her item until she equipped it, and it gave her an armor class of like 19.
Plus 3 armor classes for a spellcaster anyway. That can be huge.
Yeah, well, she's a rogue. She's a rogue. She's not a spellcaster, but still. Because I think she was like, what? Cause it's just plus 3. So why isn't it just making this plus 3? And it's like, well, because it was, I think, like scale mail.
Making it more than that.
And it's like scale mail itself is 16. So it's plus 3 to the 16. So that's the 19. And so it was like, what? But it was interesting because it gives her disadvantages because somebody brought up Furion. He always brings up like, whoa, is that even a thing? Because can a rogue actually equip heavy? Because it says here it's heavy, because everybody was like trying to look to see how to add it to the inventory and stuff, so multiple people were looking at it. It's like, well, it says here it's heavy. Can she even wear heavy? And the best I could tell, it looked like that she can. It just, because it didn't prevent her from equipping it, but it did. When she did, it looks like it throws some disadvantages on like strength throws and or strength saves and dexterity saves. So I think that is. I have to take a look at that to see if that's
which
the
makes
case.
sense. It's the same kind of thing as like encumberment. Like you're wearing something that's too heavy for you, basically. It's too awkward that you're not proficient in moving in yet.
Yeah. So I thought that was like, oh, I like that. That's and since, especially since I'm not since we're using the D20 or the Beyond, I get them all confused.
Yeah, if it ends up being a problem, potentially she could, do a quest or something to seek out something that would aid in relieving some of the problems she's having with that.
Yeah, or again,
somehow augment
might be able to swap it out to somebody who has that proficiency and trade it for something, and something along those lines. So, but yeah, I liked it. So it wasn't that because she was like, "Are you telling me now that I can't wear this?" So I'm glad it wasn't. We didn't have to have that moment, because if the rules said that she couldn't wear it, then I was gonna have to say, I'm sorry, but that's what happens when you're playing the D&D rules. But so I was glad that she was able to wear that, and it's like it does have a penalty. So it might be doing something else. I don't know behind the scenes. I'll have to take a look at that and see. But so Flutie came, so he gave some dope ass armor. The table that Shasta got to roll against got to roll a D4 because it was like a number of potions. That table was always going to be like you get a number of things. And so she rolled a D4, got a 4, so she ended up getting 4 invisibility potions. And I can't remember what Furion got. He got some item, a ring or something, but I can't remember what it was. But it was pretty cool as well. So that was fun. Got to start with Flutie making his appearance, and then everybody was up here. This rock guy was down because he had been put down in the previous encounter because of Furion's basic root. Kind of has like an entangle root spell. So this guy was prone, and he had a bunch of critical fails, which caused Dart to come underneath here, and she was whispering sweet nothings, and it had gotten into his head, and he actually thought it was said because of a critical fail that she was a voice inside of his head, and he kept having all these horrible throws. He was trying to throw rocks, but just kept missing really bad, and so she was able to use that to her advantage and cripple him with one of the most dangerous weapons known to mankind, our own self-doubt. So he was laying prone. And last session, there was a goblin who had came over and had gotten involved in the battle, but Nicholas had came in, and I think he net 20'd him. Just came in and boom. He's been good for that so far. So everybody was kind of all up on here except for Dart, who was on the underside talking to the giant who previously had been throwing rocks largely at Catchpenny, the merchant that they had teamed up with, who's found himself in this spot of bother. And so with him essentially being down, Dart stayed there and kept trying to persuade him to not harm them. Everybody else kind of made their way down over to this giant who was over here and was engaged with some dancing lights. And we, because of our due diligence and many conversations that we've had previously, we actually have dancing lights, official dancing lights, D&D product. And so he was over here to this guy and who was trying to engage with it. He tried to hit it once, which with a successful hit, and we had deemed that it would take at least 2 for him to for him to determine that the thing wasn't real. he never got a chance to do that. Before that happened, everybody kind of converged on
Hold on,
him.
Wes.
What's that?
The dancing lights looks like something from a gay pride parade or something. That figurine.
Thank you. I like that. That makes me feel like I did it right. Because I did try to do like a rainbow gradient, a rainbow gradient. Yeah, we said this is what happens to you if you go to too many raves. You take too much X, you just turn into dancing lights.
The glow sticks get absorbed into you.
Yes. You just become one with the colors. Boots and pants. And so we had him engaged with that, but then Shasta came over. A couple people had sent their pets over because we had previously that Catch Penny. He on his turn, he would randomly search the wagon to see if he could find something of use. So at one time he threw out some caltrops. If I'm probably saying that wrong, it's okay.
I thought you were going to say cow pies.
No. The caltrops, this is like a combination of cow pies and cough drops. It's cough drops made out of cow pies. That's horrible.
That's what ogres use when they have a sore throat.
Yeah, that's right. Manure.
It's cow pie. Throat sore.
Hey, Zork, can I offer you a cow pie? I love the cream filling.
Cow pie.
There is no pie like cow pie.
yeah, I'm seeing this. All right, so there's some caltrops that we have, and I picked up these cards. I think they're at half price books because that's where I pick up almost everything. But they had these deck of adventuring gear, and it's basically just one of every item in the player's handbook of like the starting table. It's like got the ball bearings, and it's got a poison flask, and it's got all this different stuff. So I ended up sorting. I bought 2 of those packs and sorted them into like crappy items, and then cool items. And so I can refer to have items whenever somebody's just randomly searching stuff. There's ability to actually find things, and it's nice to just be able to throw them like out here on the table, especially like when we come back to the session. It's easy to remember, oh yeah, there was actually something there. So he was throwing out stuff, and they were able actually to end up retrieving let's see here, some lamp oil, poison, holy water, and a healing kit.
Nice.
And so their pets were sent over, and they ended up retrieving those items. And Shasta came over and wanted to start getting it on with the hill giant over here, and ended up casting a new spell, I think Witch Bolt, and was only able to do two points of damage. But then we had Furion came over here, and he's been finding that these vines have been reacting positive to him, and due to some good rolls. He had a bad roll, but the vine had a good roll, really good roll, and he knows that he can kind of bend those things to his will. So he'd used it to lift himself up here, and ended up casting I think it was like a blindness spell essentially on this guy, and then that was giving everybody advantage on attacks, and they ended up very quickly. Shasta had her pet came over, and her pet is in supersized form right now, and that means it can do an ass load of damage. But the drawback on it is that Shasta takes half of that damage. So I think she hit it for 41 points of damage. Dropped the hill giant, almost dropped herself. She, I think, had to soak some damage to keep from falling. But yeah, and so then he's fell. Shasta's pet Bob and Robin ended up going over to hang out with Catchpenny, who's now taken some heat from this giant back here. This giant back here has now been throwing some rocks and actually hit him pretty successfully. So Bobbin's come over here, and Furian's making his way down because the road kind of goes over underneath this bridge, and then down back and underneath is where they have to kind of ramp up and then go over here to this ramp if they want to keep ascending the way of the path. So yeah, we have him that did that. Nicholas had a little fun when he came down and he tried to get all into the action over here. Him and his pet, once they finally made their way down, and he took some rope from his bag and tied a hammer onto it and was going to try to throw it up so that he could tangle up the giants, and he had a critical fail. So he ended up becoming bound up in his own rope. So we were able to use our homemade webbing to signify him being bound up in his own rope. Raina, who is NPC ally, she came to see if her and her monkey could help out, but on his next turn he was able to successfully bust out, but it did render the ropes in a pile of knots, which he abandoned. And then him and his pet went down kind of where Furion was to go along the way, and they took some damage from the caltrops. I think it was like 1 or 2 points of damage, but Furion has not. He was able to successfully navigate away. Shasta, I think, is planning on doing some damage to try to engage with this hill giant over here, but she's currently down at the base.
Is Shasta's last time McNasty?
Yeah, Shasta McNasty, I think is.
Every time you say Shasta, I want to say McNasty.
Yeah, I believe so. That's. I don't know if that's was the. I don't know if that's her government name or not, but it definitely
it's her Christian name.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be her colloquial name. But yeah, so then we have Shasta McNasty, we have Nicholas Three Trees, we have Dart.
I desperately want to see somebody dubbed that during their baptism.
I dub thee Shasta Is that Shasta McNasty? Yes. Shasta McNasty.
Am I pronouncing this properly?
That's not right. It's not. It's not.
McNasty. It must be McNasty.
Is this supposed to be Namaste? Is this really what this is supposed to?
This is clearly a misspelling.
Shasta Namaste? No, it's really McNasty. Okay, fair enough. Have at it. Yep. So we got Shasta McNasty down there, and we'd actually also started the adventure where we'd asked some questions of like. Who do you miss from, like, I think Shasta was like, who do you miss from your life before this adventure? And with Nicholas, it was, he's mentioned before about his family name, the Three Trees. And so I asked him if he had parted on good terms or bad terms. That was Nicholas. And then Furion, we asked him, like, I think about a regret that he'd had beforehand. And then Dart we asked her about somebody from her past life, and everybody gave some really good responses. I mean, it was all like multiple sentence responses, so I was really pleased with that. Shasta talked about a kind old woman that she'd met on the streets that taught her how to be loving and yet firm at the same time. Could knock a fist-sized hole in somebody's head, I think was the term used. And Nicholas had talked about that he left kind of on bad terms because he's trying to forge his own name. He's always felt that he's been in the shadow of his family, but he is proud to be a Three Trees, and he does want to do that name proud. And Dart said that she doesn't remember much. She's kind of been almost like been in a fugue state and just kind of woke up here in the middle of the journey. So she's kind of got this born supremacy sort of thing on. And she's just trying to let the past be the past and forge a new future. So she had that, and then Virion, he dropped the major backstory and about him and his grandfather, and about a spirit tree, and about how him and his grandfather had to forge their own path, and so they'd split from the rest of their clan because of them misusing the magic of the spirit tree. And then by the time that they kind of realized that it was too late, and then he ended up losing his grandfather, and he said that he regretted that he didn't keep this item from his grandfather. So it was pretty cool. He did a well job. I think you even commented on it in the Discord chat. Randy gave him a thumbs up
it was
on
really
it.
good.
Yeah, so that was cool.
He said his father's flax fluffer.
Yeah, the flax fluffer.
A good fluffer is hard to find.
Yes.
He said something about it being sad. I said, oh, he hadn't seen the like of it since. I said, oh, yes, a sad day indeed.
Yeah. A good flex fluffer is worth its weight in mithril, I'm certain.
Everybody could use a good fluffer now and then.
Yeah. I know whose flax is not want of fluffing? Hilly. Verily, verily, I say unto thee. Hear me now, see me later. Alright, let me see. Alright, so I think that was roughly where we concluded the adventure from last night.
Yeah, I was having problems with connection a few times.
I think we might have been having
or video.
Yeah, we might have been having some internet issues, it seems. Carrie said that she was having connection issues all night. So
our electricity went off for a bit beforehand.
Yeah, and my stuff was flickering at points, so
the wind gusts were insane for a minute. I was like, this might be the actual one.
Yes. Yeah. And we have huge trees here, so it's always like, we'll see what we're gonna say.
We've already had one limb out of the pine tree just barely missed doing mass damage to one of the cars, and a huge limb fell off of the back tree and damaged the sun patio.
Oof.
Which apparently you have to get the whole thing replaced if you want to fix that, apparently.
Of course.
Yeah. I've been trying to come up with ways to try to straighten out the situation myself, but not too much success yet.
All right. You know what, Randy? I need to get some photos taken here of our how I imagine that's going to be a costly repair then, or a replace.
Yeah.
You're saying it's a.
I mean, I can either just try to patch it up and make it look as good as possible, just from reattaching the facing piece and whatever, and or I could try to do some surgery on it to try to. I don't know, use a couple pieces of wood on either side and drill holes through it to use screw action to try to flatten out some of the damage, and then patch those holes, or I don't know. I don't think we want to invest in replacing the whole thing at this point, because neighborhood values.
Yeah.
I think there's already so much invested in the house that it's a losing situation potentially.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
The neighborhood has just declined more and more over the years.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. And yeah, I agree. Yeah, it gets to a point to where it's just diminished returns. Let's see here.
I think we were going to have to call. I did what I could to eliminate a lot of dead limbs and stuff, but I think there's a couple trees that need to come down, so we'll have to call out a tree service at some point.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that as well. I've got some buddies that no tree climbers, so I'm gonna see maybe about reaching out, knowing if they have any reputable tree, because we always have people that come through and it was like want to knock on your door and cut down your trees. And I would like to have a little bit more confidence in the people who perform said service.
Yeah. And my dad ran into a situation like that after a storm. Somebody came by and they ended up being like some traveling company, or basically storm chasers, and had a lot of employees that didn't speak English, which there's nothing wrong with that, except that this company didn't do the job. Like, they did a really shitty job and just left and didn't clean up at all like they were supposed to do.
Yeah,
so they kind of screwed them all over.
Yeah, and you got a traveling company essentially, and so your recourse of doing anything is
couldn't really contact them really or anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
So yeah, finding a reputable one it's good to have those contacts. The tree climbers are a good reach out point to try to find a reputable tree care company.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to find somebody that's, because we will definitely be requiring those services.
Yeah, I was able to use my climbing equipment to safely get up there and
nice.
Get a lot of the limbs down and stuff, so that they don't have to worry about them falling. But I don't have a chainsaw that's big enough to handle like cutting down the whole trunk of the tree. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's like, it's funny now, you know, the little bit of tree climbing that we've done. It's like you can kind of eyeball and how tall a tree is, because I know how long my rope was, right? So you kind of know how far that rope is, and it was like, well, I know it's more than 60. I think the apex of my rope, because I think it's 120 rope, so doubled over, you know, the highest it could be is 60. So you kind of know where 60 is. And it's like, wow. So yeah, I think these trees that we have here are taller than 60 feet. So I don't know how much taller. It would be interesting for us one day to climb them. I was thinking about that just the other day.
I'll have to see if my rope climbing skills are still in there somewhere. It's been a while.
Yeah, and that's
see if I can still tie my blade knot behind my back.
Yeah. Then I was just like, oh man, my ass started hurting as I started to think about it.
Just from thinking about it, the harness.
Yeah, thinking about now that's other parts that get a little pinched, but yeah, no, just from the climbing aspect,
the clenching.
my tiny little gluteus maximus would be very much exhausted next day, I'm sure, from a session of tree climbing. Not that it doesn't need it, but I will admit I could feel.
I've seen Dwayne had some posts about with the singing hitch or something. I can't remember what it's called, singing something. But I guess it's an ascender and a descender. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but because I haven't watched any of the videos through about it. But they just had like a new version of it or something. I don't know. It's supposed to be really good. He said since the first one first came out, that's all he's used, I think.
Huh.
So, and that's a huge selling point, because he was always switching out his gear trying to find a new thing that worked better.
Yeah, true. That's interesting.
I think it helps, because when you use the knot system, if you use like a Blake stitch, then you got a lot of friction going on, and over time it will degrade the rope. And I think this helps to eliminate that situation.
Plus, he uses the single rope theory, right? So, like all my climbing, I was using a section of rope that's doubled over, and so it's double.
Yeah,
rope
SRT
climbing
versus DRT. Yeah.
Yeah.
Single rope, double rope.
So I know that he had some mechanical tools that he had used as well that never entered my equation, so that I wasn't familiar with.
Yeah, it's the next step up. It's an investment in some more equipment and stuff that's not technically necessary, but can improve the experience potentially.
Yeah, because
and, your climbing speed and comfort and everything.
Yeah, because I mean, just the simple math with the SRT versus the DRT is that with the DRT you have to climb twice as much rope to get up the same distance, but it's half as hard because it's pulley system. So that's the way like a pulley works, right? Is that you're pulling it, you have to pull twice as much rope, but it's half as hard to pull, right? That's the the pro and the con of it. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of like DRT is like stand and sit, stand and sit, stand and sit kind of. And I think with single rope, you might be able to do more like rope running in a way, like
yeah,
just kind of go straight up
yeah, that seems to
a
be
bit.
that jives with my experiences.
It's been a long time, and
Yeah, been a long time. I just got a reminder on Facebook that it was 7 years ago that I was in the classroom for the first time when I went back to college. I'd taken a picture, and posted it. Like there was like 4 people, and it was like that. So that was 7 years ago. I was just like, wow.
did you say you were you were in class at least, if not in a test, and like your phone started ringing and it had like the TARDIS or the sonic screwdriver as the ringtone or something?
It was the TARDIS, yeah. And then so it was one of our finals, and I had my phone, an app on my phone that would automatically mute it during classes. So from certain times of the day, it would just mute it.
But it was a different time.
But we had
final.
our final was at a different time than normal class time, and so we're in
Nice.
there, and so yeah, it starts going.
Doctor, always leaving the brakes on.
And I had it. It was so far, like I had it in my book bag or something, and was just like, I just had to let it ring.
Like, I don't know, what is that? You're looking around like, what is that? Who's that?
Yeah, I just was like, nerd, nerds. Who gets those? Yeah, yeah. That was a good one. That was my abnormal psychology one. And it's funny because I knew that I was different time and place in my life because I just thought it was funny, rather than being mortally embarrassed. It was like, this is the first time that I was a student. I'm sure I would have, been so like embarrassed by that,
traumatized by the embarrassment.
Like, oh.
There goes your final. You just ruined your whole final grade.
It was funny being a 40-year-old, amongst all the college students, because at one point I realized it's like the age only really matters to me. Like most of the students don't even care, It's not like, oh, it's a weird old dude in class. It's just like, you're just another student, and they would ask you to study or do whatever, they just treated you like another student. And it's weird to you, way weirder to you than it is to them. And it's like, then I started to remember, it's like, we had older people in my classes, and you never thought anything. It was like, somebody getting their learn on. But good times. You and I both had some positive experiences of taking some college classes as adults. Found it to be gratifying, very hugely gratifying experience. A lot of work, but I don't regret it. It's good closure.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of closure, let's take a moment to have our mental health minute, Randy. And I had here that self-sabotage is real. That's the topic that I had for today's mental health minute. Would you agree with that? The basic premise. Do I need to elaborate further?
Oh yeah, I don't think we need to.
We don't need to.
I imagine that pretty much everybody has experienced that at some point or another.
Yeah.
Or is at least aware of somebody else having an issue with it.
Yeah, and so the thought that I was just having is just like it's funny. It's like I was having a moment of here recently where it was just kind of like I don't want to, and I don't want to anything. You know what I mean? It's just like I just don't want to. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be anything. I don't want to, and it's just like. Just sort of churning on yourself. And I can remember at other times in my life where that same impulse, say the first time when I was in college, for example, that same impulse caused me a lot of regret and or not regret, but some regret and a lot of wasted time and effort and money, and and so it was just kind of making me think a little back on that, and that that you need to be vigilant because self-sabotage is real. That was just kind of the initial leaping off point. You have anything else you'd like to add to that, Randy?
No, I'm just trying to think of the best way to combat that, and what perchance could be the root of it, and nothing is coming to mind with any definitive qualities to it.
I think being vigilant, being aware that it.
I think that you touched on it with being able to have something that you can look back to and be like, oh yeah, this is a previous situation where I did this, and this is how I resolved that, and I know that my positive experience from resolving that was so beneficial that I need to keep that in mind.
Or here's an experience where I didn't do it, and try to contemplate a different technique that you could, so when you do encounter it and become aware of it, that maybe you can try to implement some strategy to, because I think it's just being aware of it, that that it is real, and just remembering how easy it is to lie to yourself and fool yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you want something, it's easy to convince yourself of things a lot of times. You know what I mean? It's easy to negotiate things in your head to get what it is that you really want. But then calling it something else. I'm being healthy by doing this thing, but I really want to do, or I'm being responsible by doing this thing. But yeah. So yep, that was all. The mental health minute can be that, just the mental health minute, just taking
what's up, Tater?
To pause and hey, what's up, Tater? Taking a D&D nerds unite. I wanted to have a shirt, Randy, that says "Anarchist Unite." I think that's funny.
Because it should be all about chaos, and uniting is like you gotta come together in the opposite of chaos.
Right?
Is it order?
It's like I want to bring all the anarchists together for one common goal. And so it's like because it's just like a way of supporting something is something unite, right? And so it's like anarchists unite. Just seems like a fun T-shirt. He likes to negotiate and eat all the ice cream.
It would unfortunately be lost on most people, though, I think.
Say that again.
They would just think that. I would think it would unfortunately be lost on most people as a humorous thing. It would just be like.
And I think I'm okay with that. I think that's
he wants to tear down everything.
Yeah, I think that.
Which I mean, kind of. But they just want to get the humorous nature of it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think it's one of those that it's like where you're wearing it because you want. It's finding your own. It's a finding your own magnet sort of thing. It's like, hey, I see what you're doing there. But yeah.
It's like I like wearing shirts with roosters on them.
Yeah, you do.
It's a little nod.
So little.
Tater says, I like negotiating, eating all the ice cream, and I've discovered I'm an amazing negotiator.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be irresponsible for me not to put this ice cream all up in my mouth hole. Another successful negotiation.
Ew.
Coming in hot.
Hot with the beat.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. Cock-a-doodle-doo. I did want to mention, I had as one of our topics, our chat topics, here is movie night. And so what we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to do D&D weekly, but we'll know that that's going to fail through. So on the weeks that fell through, I think that we'll try to do a movie night, a remote movie night session. So
Cool.
for the next movie night session, if possible, unless you're the one that has to bail, Tater, I'm going to leave it up to you. You can choose the movie for the next movie night. So. Oh yeah, man! I'm glad that you had such a good time with the session. I hope that my fear is that it doesn't go too slow, and so if it feels that way, I mean, we spent 3 hours and we got 2 bananas, but it just is what it is. So and I think that as we get more familiar with our skills and our abilities, so. But yeah, you can pick next movie. I like the direction that you were going with the next movie, so we'll let you choose whatever the next movie is, and as long as we have the ability to make it happen, we will do that. Slow just for everybody. But that's one thing I was telling Shad that I appreciated that him being on and participating in the chat, and everybody's kind of said that they've enjoyed being able to goof around in the chat. So hopefully that kind of keeps it a way of it not being as slow and keeping everybody. Okay, cool, good. Okay, awesome. It can be hard for me to get a sense of that, so that's good feedback. But yeah, we had a fun session. We just did a recap of it all, and will go down in posterity. So and this is the stuff here, Randy, is that I'm thinking about wanting to try to figure out a way to incorporate some of this footage, right, of us doing the recaps, and if I can go through and kind of nip those pieces and maybe even do some maybe some high speed footage of some of the stuff, like putting together the boards and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For movie night ideas, I googled best movies for geeks, and it looks like CNET even has a list of best geek movies of the decade. But just on the pictures that came up with in the Google search was War Games, Weird Science, Real Genius. These are all ones that we've mentioned. Hackers is in there. Spaceballs, Tron.
There was one that
we didn't mention Hackers. We mentioned Sneakers. Sneakers is on there.
So Sneakers, yeah, I love Sneakers.
And then there's one called The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, and it looks like it was probably from, I don't know, 50s, 60s, maybe? Probably, I don't know. Anyway, I think that must be an original of what I saw as a remake, because I remember a couple different versions of a movie about a boy who was a robot. And one of them was like the father who had a daughter created the son. I think it was like My Son the Robot or something. Or there was more than one. There was like a Hackers. Ta-ta. Ta-ta.
Boomies. Funny stuff.
Computer Origins, where the boy was an android or something, and whether the father created it and somebody was trying to get to him, or whether he was created in a laboratory, and one of the scientists escaped with him and let him live his own life out in the world. I'm wondering if this is like the original version of those.
Wasn't there a TV show about some little girl robot? People lived with a little girl robot. Am I making that up?
I don't know.
It was almost like like Punky Brewster time. Yeah, that looked like a little girl but happened to be a robot. Yeah,
or an android.
Yeah.
Let
me see. Yes. Or the best ever.
There weren't tentacles involved, as far as I recollect.
No, it was not.
Let's see.
Girl robot TV show. Small Wonder. Yep, that was it. Had 4 seasons.
Shaggy DA. Cat from Outer Space would mention that one. What is it?
Small Wonder.
Small Wonder? That sounds familiar. Oh, yeah. Wow.
That makes sense, Tater. Oh, the mid-80s. We were young and our hearts were like open books. Hey, you know.
I think I remember that show. I think was it just the brother? Somebody tried to get her to do his homework for him or something.
Okay. Yeah, because I looked and it's just like the thing. It had a thing with her like blinking her eyes and some chubby faced boy with a bowl cut. That was
yeah.
You know,
Here's a
classic
picture
80s.
of her with a light bulb in her mouth, and the light bulb's lit.
Well, that's yeah. Yep. One of my favorite things about the Mythbusters is when they did the they made them all do lie detector tests, and they asked Grant.
And what?
They made them all do lie detector tests.
Oh yeah.
And they asked Grant. They asked Grant if he'd ever fantasized about having sex with a robot. And his response indicated deception.
He's like, well, not a robot. A cyborg or an android, sure.
Yeah, no, because I don't. I think that the classification of a robot is be impossible because. All right, let's see if we can go over here and get some shots of our.
Tater, so you say you're a trisexual?
Yeah, there you go.
Try anything.
I mean, basically, if you're willing to use a vibrator.
Don't knock it before you try it.
Right, Randy?
What's that?
I mean,
why are you asking me?
That's good stuff right there. That's good. Oh, loving it.
That's always chip my teeth. It's an old joke that one of my friends used to say.
Yeah. Are you a vampire? No. Just been going down on a vibrator. All right. Good times, good times. So they got the goblins that are over here on the bridge that have been watching the action. Oh, and that was one of the things is that the guy mentioned that his horse, Catchpenny says, he's looking for his horse that they took. All right.
Here we go. Not Quite Disney presents Not Quite Human. That's one of the things I was talking about. The adventures of a high-tech teenage android. If he survives high school, he'll survive anything. And that's with, Thick.
Alan Thicke?
Yeah.
Of
Alan Thicke. He's the father. And Robin Lively.
See, Alan Thicke. What was the show? Family Matters? It wasn't Family Matters, was it? As long as we've got
Growing
each
Pains,
other.
wasn't it?
Yeah. I think the theme song was done by B.J. Thomas. Mr. B.J. Thomas.
Family Matters is with Urkel.
Oh, yeah.
Real life.
But I do it. All
I
right.
wish I could remember what the one about the little kid is, though. Anyway.
I think we're going to take our board down. So if
Let's
we do this
see.
right, it should come apart.
Oh, we missed.
Go ahead.
We missed Best Friends Day. We'll have
Oh,
to schedule some computer time to celebrate.
I didn't miss it. I hung out with my best friend that day.
Oh, burn!
Dude,
What a dick!
that is straight up dickish. No, I had a great time on Best Friends Day. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's just my life in a nutshell. What are you talking?
That's sorry. Yeah, that was a joke.
Thanks for bringing the flashbacks back. I really appreciate it. I'm
that
having
was just
go cry in the
joke,
corner.
but your reaction tells me that I got a little too close to the mark there. That was not my intent. Sorry. Oh man, this is middle school all over again. All right. So just try to knock down the parts that are.
You know when like you hit a nerve when somebody laughs too much. That's so funny.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we got that, and then National Donald Duck Day. It's probably what is today? Today is the 11th. National Making Life Beautiful Day. That's today. Make something beautiful to make life beautiful.
You know, we were talking about the critique versus create. I figured out a way to say it concisely. Don't hate, create. That's my phrase. That's my T-shirt right there, Randy. Don't hate, create.
There you go.
That's the sentiment that I'm trying to.
The world would be such a better place
If instead of the hate, we would focus on creating, making.
unless
something.
they take that to mean, oh, so I won't bother about hating. I'll just build a bomb and I'll create a bomb. That's not what
Don't
you
waste
mean.
your time hating. Create weapons of mass destruction so that you can actually put that hate in action. Don't just waste your time.
That sounds like the gun dealer from Borderlands. That's something you would say.
Yeah. Hey.
Don't put that hate to waste. Now selling weapons of mass destruction.
Have
For a
all
limited
that
time
unused
only.
hateful energy? I can put it to work. That's fun. Yeah, they do have some. That game has one of the best sense of humors in any game. It's just like stuff that Skeeter
Funny
says.
and extremely disturbing at times as well.
Yeah. It's like Skeeter. Everything he says is a dream, is delightful, and like anytime you go to those, are you overburdened with money? I can help you. It's like just small things like that they have little snippets and all the audio stuff. It's just so funny. All the Handsome Jack, I love that they make you hate him within about 3 seconds just because of his chatter.
He has good commentary.
Yeah, he does.
I swear that once you get in the sanctuary, there is like a news agent that has a recorder that he's selling. And it's some news broadcaster, supposedly. But you don't see their face or anything. It's just, like communication waves or something. I think it's... I contend that is Handsome Jack disguising his voice to throw propaganda out there.
I love it. I will enjoy watching and seeing. Let's see here.
Are your lights supposed to look like IUD?
Yeah.
Or a uterus, or what's going on here?
So these
You
are the
get the
fallopian
tubes
these are
and
the
ovaries
fallopians.
up the sides, and
Yeah. And this here is where all the magic happens. I don't know what that means, but
we're an alien with a mad flip haircut. I don't know.
with the strip, it's important to figure out where the center is. So that was the thing. Was just trying to. If I was going to have the lights, I didn't want to have a bunch of lights on one side and not the other. So I was just trying to figure out a way to. Alright. So.
Oh, it's also National German Chocolate Cake Day. So I'm gonna make my life beautiful by making myself a German chocolate cake.
You're not going to hate. You are going to create yourself some cake.
Some tasty goodness, delicious, tasty goodness
Don't hate. Bake cake.
with chocolate, caramel, and coconut. Yum yum yum.
Does sound like some good times. Oh, I want some of that goodness. Alright, let's see here.
Hey, Saturday is National Weed Your Garden Day, which, depending on who you are, that may mean something a little different to you. You could be weeding your garden, or you could be like sowing weed in your garden.
Selling weed in your garden. Come on, man. It's anybody need some veg? I got some high quality veg here. Have you ever had Vegemite?
I do know. I don't think so. I think I would remember Vegemite or Marmite. They're similar yet extremely different, apparently. It was like fermented brewer's yeast or something. Is the Marmite? I guess. One's the British. Marmite's British, and Vegemite is Australia's answer to Marmite, basically. Their version of it.
Vegemite is Australia's answer to Marmite. Is that what
Yeah, it's like their version.
And Marmite is whose?
Very similar
is
yet
that
different.
Is that New Zealand's? Who'd you say?
British.
Ah, the Marmite. That's
Marmite's
funny.
British.
I don't ever remember hearing about Marmite.
They're both like a love-hate. You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
And people have very strong beliefs about exactly how you're supposed to eat it.
Oh, really? That makes sense.
In a lot of cases.
It's like revenge. It's best served cold.
It's like, no, you serve it on a piece of toast with it's smeared this way on like this much.
I don't know if you had ever. We were playing with.
So a lot of times they'll. Sorry, hold on one second. They'll give it to somebody like a spoonful to taste when the person doesn't know what it is, and they're like, "Whoa, dude! Normally we just used like a very thin smearing on a piece of toast, and you just ate a spoonful whole. So enjoy that."
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be like horseradish or something, right? Yeah, it's just like no.
Wasabi.
Yeah,
Teaspoon
wasabi.
of straight wasabi.
Yeah.
Oh.
I did that once. We had this church I grew up to. You know, they would have like potlucks, right? And everybody would bring stuff. And we found somebody had brought in this homemade horseradish, and so we were trying to get people to smell it because it would like just knock you out. And so we got my mom to smell it, and I was like, "No, it's kind of faint, so you're really going to have to take a big whiff of it."
What was it?
It was horseradish,
what was it?
Homemade horseradish.
Oh, yeah.
And she like took a big whiff in it and started crying.
Oh.
And I felt so horrible. I felt so bad. Making my mom
Just like
cry.
mustard gassed your mom.
I mustard gassed my mom at the at the church smorgasbord. I was like, oh man. It's all fun and games until you make your mom cry from tear gas. Let's see here. Move these up.
So I saw a YouTube video My channel it's called
I
Just
bet
Have
you
a
did.
Think, and it was talking about how they apparently discovered a a bacterium that has learned how to break down some plastics.
Break it
One that
down.
they previously thought was there was no way to break down in a biological sense. Yeah, and apparently it made they really studied this and examined it and broke it down, trying to figure it out how it worked and trying to figure out if they could improve it to combat our plastic problem, plastic pollution problem.
I don't have a problem.
And
I can
they
quit
made
anytime I want.
good luck quitting plastic altogether.
I don't need plastics.
But they found basically, like, I think within a landfill situation there was a bunch of plastic, and they saw like a big pile of sludge underneath a pile of plastic, and like, what the heck is this? And examined it and found that there was this bacterium in it, and then by
And that bacterium kept going,
examining
nom,
it.
nom, 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 every time I put it next to plastics.
Yeah, exactly. It was real loud.
Nom, nom,
Nah,
nom,
nah,
nom, 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 nom.
So they they examined that, and we're trying to see if they could reproduce it, and they couldn't reproduce part of it. They found out they could reproduce the gene. I guess they found out which gene was producing the enzymes that were breaking the plastic down, and then studied those. They found that they were actually very close to something that occurs in nature, where a bacterium has learned to break down a kind of waxy, almost like a biopolymer, similar to like not a rayon, but some sort of what we would have considered as a synthetic fabric, the way we use it. But there's something similar that is produced on plants as a protective layer, that this bacterium has learned to get through. So this is like an altered version of that, which is amazing in itself, but even more so in that it only took like a 50-year period to happen for this, evolutionary jump or adaptation. So they think that there might actually be other bacteriums that have learned to do this with other types of plastics as well. They just have to take the time to do the somewhat unsavory task of sorting through all the different landfills to find out if there's any other type of bacterium that have learned how to do this.
That's interesting. So if I heard you correctly, you were saying that there's this bacterium, and it looks like that through evolutionary means, that where they had evolved to potentially eat through a protective barrier of something that they would encounter in their natural environment, that allows them to also break down the barrier of plastic and making it potentially more biodegradable. Is that what I'm...
Yeah, they actually were breaking it down into like a sludge.
Break it down.
So it's a type of plastic that we previously thought was not able to biodegrade at all. Or at least like it would take 400 years to do so.
Right, yeah. Everything's biodegradable. We're just impatient. That's one of my favorite lines.
But yeah, so somehow nature found a way. It adapted. And I think that, could be part of like nature's like, holy crap, you guys, seriously, this is a huge issue.
Yeah. Really? Are you going to
There's
keep...
so much of this crap, I have to do something.
If you guys are going to keep making this stuff, I'm going to have to do something that will consume it. All right. That's interesting. That's really interesting. All right. I have to say, Randy, I'm pleased at how quickly we're able to swap out our work area here. We're getting to be... We've allowed ourselves good spaces so that we can make those swaps a little easier here. We're learning how to do it, so
Nice.
that feels pleasant.
We're using your magnets and metal moving trays and stuff, staging trays.
On this particular board, I don't have it. But I am using 2x2 XPS foam board. So that's the core of it. So I can just move that in and out of this room easy. If I'm going to be moving stuff up and down from like upstairs, if we can start playing in person again and play upstairs, though, I'll probably start doing everything almost exclusively. That way I can bring them down on 1x1 sections instead of 2x2, which is hard to do without knocking everything off the board. And I'm impatient. So I always want to try to, I'll risk it. I'll risk it.
Risk it for the biscuit.
Risk it for the biscuit. I don't think I've ever heard that. I find that...
I hadn't either. There was a gamer that, I can't remember his name right now. He has a YouTube channel where a lot of times he'll destroy people's bases in like Ark, but then secretly have like this huge new tech base, which is the high level tier technology, built for them to replace their crappy little base. So do something to make him feel like, oh crap. Or he hosts these events where he'll give away, like, he'll say, if you kill your most beloved dinosaur, then I'll give you this like really elusive one. Or, those sort of like ethical dilemma situations, or
if you will kill one of your children, I will show you the gates of heaven. Yeah, okay.
Or there was a huge like zoo contest where they had to try to... he created like the zoo where there were a bunch of rare animals in the game that were caged, and everyone had to try to break in and tame that creature, and whoever was successful got to keep the creature that they were able to tame, or something like that. Whoever did it first. And they had like a trader set up, so you had to like come prepared with whatever they decided was the currency to buy the items that would help you tame these creatures or something. So it was really interesting the way they had it set up, the way the video played out.
Yeah, no doubt. That's pretty neat. I like that. I remember back in EverQuest, them doing things where they would... There was in one of the starter zones, one of the ways of traveling was by wizard teleportation. So there'd be these wizard spires and zones, and I can remember one of the starting zones are like, all right, level ones, you get together, and they made them drink. You'd make them get naked and drink and do like bare knuckle boxing, and they would give them prizes for the winners. And it's like, that's fun. That's just a really fun idea.
About the open box games, the sandbox games, is that you can do all these different things. Like you can create whole stories and stuff, and the artwork is done for you. So all you have to do is come up with the creativity aspect of it and make the story. And then, in a lot of ways, even if a lot of people will do this with a group of friends and then create another character that plays the camera, or they'll take turns being the camera. So they'll get lots of different views and shots and be able to set up scenes in that way. But it's really cool. And all the different stuff, like I said, you can set up the different contests or games and things like that within the game. The game within the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's neat to see how, people take the thing that was designed and how they're able to morph it into something else. Mm-hmm. So human ingenuity is always fun that way. I know that game that I was playing, that Landmark game, the builders of that game, because it never got out of alpha, I don't think, really. They were really interactive with the community.
Which one?
That Landmark, the building game, that was going to be a prelude to the next EverQuest. Mm-hmm. They said that, that all the things that people were doing that were like super cool was like just them people breaking, in essence, breaking the tools. It was like, they never knew that you were going to be able, people were making like, because it was all about, you had to have I think they called it a voxel, the building, the smallest building block was called a voxel, and that by placing voxels next to other voxels caused them to warp in weird ways, and people started to learn how to control those, and so they could make some really intricate shapes by it, and they make things called voxel reactors and things like that. But a lot of the stuff, it was just like, we had no clue that this thing would happen. It was just, just fortuity. EverQuest is
Nice.
considered hardcore because WoW. Well, that is absolutely true because WoW, as I recall, WoW was actually made by people who had worked on EverQuest, and their goal was to intentionally take out some of the hard elements. Because EverQuest was cruel. I mean, it was tough. If you were a caster, until you hit level 35, you had to meditate your spells, and you basically got to look at the spell book, so you couldn't even see anything around you. You just literally had to sit there for minutes at a time just looking at your spell book just so you could get your mana back. And that happened, I think, until level 30 or 35. And then you got the meditate ability where you didn't have to do that, something along those lines. When you died, you would resurrect back to whatever your spawn point was. So if you were in a dungeon, you would go back to your spawn point, and you would be naked, and you would have all your spells unmemorized. So the first thing you would have to do is rememorize all your spells. Then you would have to try to get back to wherever it was that you died, which if you were in a dungeon, now you're naked. And it could be crazy. It was nuts. And the thing was is that you would work so hard to get like a +2 item. Was like it was so much. And then you had hell levels, which were not intentional, but apparently like there was some leveling glitch, formula glitch, and so you would have hell levels, so like 30, 35, and 40. Like think from 30 on, every 5 levels was a hell level, so you'd end up having to require twice as much experience or more to be able to complete that level. So you'd be grinding at a certain pace, and then you'd hit those hell levels, and man, you would just be in them forever. And everything that you bought, you had to pretty much get from a human player, because you couldn't do anything from the merchants that was worth anything. Yeah, it was. Whereas, I mean, I remember playing WoW, and you would lose experience every time you died, and I can remember losing levels. That always sucked.
That sucks.
Which you could have that in WoW.
I played games that had this as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could have that in WoW, but I can remember basically just doing suicide runs in WoW, where it was just like, I need to get to this thing, and so I'm just going to die, and I'm going to go get my corpse, and I'm going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to die, I'm going to go a little further, and I'm going to die. But yeah, having played both of them, they were, and I got it, and I was for it in a way, the dumbing down of EQ, because it was really tough. But I've talked with my brother that we've never had any better experiences playing than playing EverQuest. And some of that, I think, was just because it was so novel at the time to be able to play. It was the first large-scale MMORPG, I think. And people will talk about Ultima, and some perhaps that's, you could argue that that's the first one. But the first one I ever got to experience was EverQuest, and to do it on such a large scale with that many people, it was just revolutionary. And then it was so revolutionary, you started getting people who would never play RPGs that were getting into those. And it's like, we had people that we worked with that I never guessed would get into that type of game, that got into it, hardcore. It's kind of funny. All right. The beauty of the RPG.
I hated. There used to be the game. I think that was the first game I played like that. You had to get blessed at the temple every day before you went out. Otherwise, if you died, you dropped your bag that had everything in it. So you'd spawn. You'd be naked. You'd have to rush back to your bag, wherever it was, and try to get your stuff. But there were also glitches in the game. Yeah. Where it would be stuck, where it would disappear and you wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah.
You have to, or you would get stuck and have to kill yourself, and then you couldn't reach your bag or whatever. So that always sucked.
Yeah. I remember fighting over spawn points. That was always interesting. And so we were power leveling our
people
characters.
camping the spawns.
Yeah, which is what you're. It's like, are you supposed to camp spawns or you're not supposed to camp spawns? How can you not camp
In some
spawns?
cases, you have to. If
Right, you
you
have.
you're
Yeah,
on a quest to get this thing, and the only way to get it is to camp it.
yeah. So you're at a spawn, and it's just like, well, if there's multiple camps at the spawn, is that one spawn or is it multiple spawns? And you can't maximize
Yeah.
all these spawn points, and we were power leveling anyway, so it's like you could definitely handle all these, and you kind of needed to make it worthwhile. And so some other
Yeah.
people were coming, and they were trying to take the part of the camp, when things would spawn. And I can remember us bringing up our mains, and I had an enchanter, and so I could charm these mobs. And so as soon as they were spawned, those people would just start nuking them like crazy to try to pull the aggro. And so I would charm them, but they wouldn't realize it. And so I'd charm it, and then they would blast it with all their spells and lose all their mana. And then I would cast invisibility to break it, and then we could pull it. And things like that, where you have these moments where it's just like, I haven't had very many moments in other games where that made that type of memory where you could have that type of dynamic. But virtual worlds, it was the first virtual world I think that I'd ever been a part of, and it was a novel experience for certain.
That's always a good thing too. When you're able to find a way to bypass the people who are being assholes.
Yeah.
Like using dynamics of the game to find a way to bypass their jackassery. That's good times.
I told you the one I like, the story I like to tell is about, we used to sell these steins of Mogox, and my wife, she would do a lot of the questing, and then I would do the selling, and we'd split the profits. And so it was one of the first offhand weapons that casters would get, and it's 150 gold. And I remember I sold one to somebody. The next day they wanted a refund, and they kept hounding me, and I was like, all right. And so I gave it to them, but I gave it to them in copper pieces, so it meant that they couldn't move.
Encumbrance.
And then we trained mobs on them.
This is why we don't use encumbrance in D&D.
Exactly. And then we gave it to him. He's like, oh, come on, man, don't. It's like, if you want it, this is how you're getting it. And so he accepted it, and then we trained a bunch of mobs on him. And I can remember then eventually his corpse being dragged away.
I remember you talking about Parfy being the richest person on the server and setting market prices a lot. And
he did have a lot
about it. It's like, well, you're not my target demographic.
Yeah, that was from EverQuest 1. That was my state. We would you learned a lot, and that's what people was like, oh, computers make people separate and blah blah blah. And I was like, I learned a lot of skills from how to interact with people through EverQuest and MMORPGs. And so because you would have to sell your items to players and buy items from players, and so you had to do all these social interactions, which they ended up getting away from. But yeah, that was the one. It was like, people would say, that's not what those go for. And it's just like, what they go for is what I'm willing to sell it for and what somebody's willing to buy it for, right? There is no catalog. We always say that. It's like, oh, I must have missed the pricing catalog. And but yeah, people are always like, that's not what they go for. And so we got to where we would just say, well, apparently you're not my target demographic. These are for people that can afford to pay for them, and things like that. But yeah, Mark, he would do things that you realize, oh, that's why there's laws against that in the real world. Like price fixing. So yeah, in EverQuest 2, he told me, now he lies a lot, but this could be true, that he was the second richest person on the server, and because he had it to where he had a lot of bots, macros running for like things for crafting, and so he would pay people to go out and get resources for him. And so something that was a rare resource, he would overpay people to go get them so that he could have all of them, so that he could raise the market price on them. To be nuts. But
he's that asshole.
yeah, that time it was. And because the crafting element was a lot different in EverQuest 2 than it was in 1. And I can remember him being crazy. I remember visiting him one time, and like he's got a second computer that's just doing things on its own as it was mixing components. And he says sometimes you'll get GMs that come to you, and I'm over here and I just keep an eye on it, and if something happens, you just interact and talk with somebody, and they realize there's a human here, and you're all good. It's just like, yeah, so he could have that like running in the background, have his main or his
wasn't
alts
WoW
crafted.
added some security features to try to keep bots out of the game. They would try to detect if somebody was doing something they thought a bot was controlling the character, because people would try to do it.
Yeah, they
farming, mob farming, or whatever.
I ended up playing some EverQuest about 3 years ago, and it was crazy because, I mean, that game, we started playing that game in like 2000, probably played it for 4 years or something like that, and I pulled up my character 3 years ago, and it still had buffs on it. That was nuts. It retained the information of its buffs for like over 10 years. I was like, that's pretty cool. But then I almost got killed in the newbie zone because I couldn't remember how to do anything. I almost got zerged by some invisible creatures that are in the common lands, and I had to run to the zone to drop them because I couldn't figure out how to cast any of my spells. But they had a server, an old server, and there's terms that they use at time lock servers and things like that. So where it was vanilla EQ, and they were going to release the expansions every so often. And so I was playing that, and it was a lot of fun. But you just didn't have all the people in it, and in some ways it makes it feel sad when you're in these zones that, you know, you remember there being hundreds of people in there, and now there's nobody in that particular zone.
Yeah.
But even with
in
it,
some ways
like,
it's like nice to have an area to yourself, but if you reach a point where it's like,
yeah, you go to the cities and there's no
because
you just feel like you're playing a first person game, and you realize, yeah, you can play EverQuest,
the game
too.
is...
Yeah. Yep, there's still definitely people out there. And there was still people that do these, and it was a fun way to do it, doing the time lock servers, especially if you get on it like when everybody is doing it. Then some of those zones actually are populated, and you do see some people.
What does the time lock mean again? In that
so with the time lock, like with one I think that were time lock, is that you would start off in EverQuest. You had, I think, 3 continents, and then the first expansion added Kunark, which was a new continent, and then I think Isavelius added another continent. So basically, you didn't anything that they'd added to the game.
So they just weren't adding additional expansions to that version.
Yeah, and then also, you know, with either of those expansions, different things, you know, like spells that weren't in the world at that time now became part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize, like, one of the main spells for an enchanter is Breeze, which is like increases your mana regeneration, and you get that at level 8. But that was a Kunark. Apparently, that was a Kunark thing. And so you're playing, I'm like, why can't I get Breeze? Where is it? And it's weird because not all cities would have all the spells. And then also, that was the thing too, was the EverQuest is that it didn't have a map. There was no map system, which it seems so crazy. But there was no map system. Nothing. And so I actually had a book printed from the internet of like all the zones from like probably the beginning and the Kunark expansion.
Yeah.
And then I remember us having, you know, which was rare, but we had like a third computer. So I'd be playing and my wife would be playing. We'd have a third computer that you could use to look stuff up on the internet because you couldn't alt tab out of that game. It would crash it. And so you'd have another computer that you would use, you know, again, pre-cell phones. And so just looking stuff up, like, and again, you know, you have to try to get back to your corpse. You wouldn't even have maps of anything. And now when you're playing these time lock servers or these other progression servers, they call them, I think, progression servers as well, that because they'll progressively add the stuff. But playing those, it's still easier. You still get experience quicker. Your regens all happen quicker, and it has maps. So even with those, you still aren't playing true original EQ.
There's something to be said about the immersion capability of something that doesn't give you a map to follow, especially if, like with WoW and all the add-ons you could get for questing and stuff, that just pointed everything out to you. So all you had to do was there was an arrow that was superimposed over your avatar, and all you had to do was just go the direction that the arrow was pointing. That's all you had to do. Like you didn't have to try to figure anything out.
You didn't have to figure anything out.
Yeah. Before that, you actually had to read the text to figure out what you were supposed to do, where you were supposed to go, and then pay attention to the landscape and landmarks and things like that. So it's much more immersive in that way, I think.
Yeah, because it would tell you, like in WoW, it's like, oh, these are areas where you're going to be able to hunt the creature that's going to drop the mob, right? You didn't have anything like that in EQ. You may have needed to go get some things, but it was like, yeah, 3 zones over, it would have a quest for something that was, so you would probably were never ever going to even come across this thing on your own, right? And it was only because of the community that you know that, oh, this quest even exists and this is a good way for you to get experience starting out. And yeah, it just made you work a lot harder. In the starter zones, you almost always had things that could kill you. So like in WoW, I remember that, was it Burning Crusades where you went through the big door in WoW, Randy?
Wasn't the portal?
Yeah, the portal. That was Burning Crusades, I think.
I think so.
But you have that. I remember you had like those first zones when you come through the portal, and I remember that there was some big like Galacticus type of creatures, I think, that could stomp you, and it gave me flashbacks to that, like because when you'd be in some of these damn near starting levels zones, there was giants that would stomp you. They would one hit you by just stomping on you, and it would take you, it would take you months and months and months to where you'd be able to be strong enough to be able to play or be able to fight those. And then that's a great feeling, is when you're able to go giant hunting. Really gratifying. But yeah, there's just some things about it's interesting because I think a lot about it in terms of D&D as well. The difference between EQ and the difference between WoW, and that there really is this thing of getting what you want is not getting what you think you want doesn't give you true happiness. And I think that I've experienced that in WoW, that you think, I want this to be easier, but you do need some of that effort for there to be a reward, that you've invested something, you've earned something. I'm trying to think of what some of the hardest things we ever did in WoW, and I don't know that they ever equated to some of the hardest things that I did in EQ. But I was thinking back at our WoW days and about when we were doing trying to get some of the PvP gear. And just like, I don't think I ever want to do that again. I don't want to be playing something where it's like, we're just doing this just so we're doing it just to lose. Remember, we were doing matches just to lose because that's how you got your points, so you get enough points every week to get your tokens to upgrade your gear or whatever it was. And it was
participation points, basically.
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't think I ever want to play a game to where I feel like I have to do the rigmarole or dailies. I'm not into dailies. I don't want to play a game that has dailies.
Yeah, you get to be like it's like a job.
Yeah.
But you don't get paid for it. You pay to do the work.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, and that's what I was always really light on guilds. But that's one of the things I liked about WoW, was that WoW allowed me to play a lot more solo, and I didn't have to be dependent upon other people as much. So I did appreciate that. But at the same time, it does take a lot away from the game. It's like, it's nice having merchants that, PC merchants even, but which would be like the marketplace in WoW. Eventually EQ ended up doing it to where you had merchants, but yeah, so it's like the marketplace in WoW. But it definitely there's a cost to it. Yeah. For all the conveniences, there's a cost.
That's like, WoW, I was maintaining my character. Like, I was still paying. I still had my account and everything. I was maintaining that. Yeah. You could take all your inventory and mail it to yourself to extend, how much time, or you could store stuff. Like if you ran out of inventory stuff, you could store stuff in your mail by sending it to your other character, or whatever. But that had like a 30-day limit or something before your mail disappeared. So every 30 days, you had to log back on and send all your mail back to the other character, or whatever.
and that's when you end up stop playing, right? Is that first time that you miss that, and you're like, oh, this is
Yep,
probably when I
I
need to
missed
stop
it by
playing.
like an hour, and lost all the stuff that I had in there, which was massive. And it was like, yep, that's it. That's the last straw. I'm done.
It's time to move.
Time to move on.
Time to regain this portion of my life. Yeah, Tater says he doesn't
Yeah.
like MMOs because they're too big and takes up too much time, and they're super addictive. And all of that is
Yeah.
true. I do enjoy an MMO. I figure probably every 5 to 10 years, maybe I might try. Want to dip my toes into an MMO.
Hmm.
Because they're fun, and you get a good world, and you get a decent group of people that you can play with. I was lucky that when we got into
Yeah, it's really cool
WoW.
when you find good people, and you can have a lot of fun with that. Dealing with a lot of the assholes or the guild drama and stuff when you're trying to do a raid is aggravating.
Yeah, and we were playing WoW. I mean, we probably had about 6 or 7 people that we knew in real life that were all playing at the same time, so that makes it really nice.
It was hard getting everybody on at the same time, to actually do anything together. But yeah, it was fun. It was good times.
Yeah, a single player game with an amazing story. Yeah, I tend to, some of these large games, like Borderlands, and trying to think what some of, I don't know, I guess even the Spider-Man and things like that. You have no friends outside us that play PC. That's a big difference. Is playing with
Yeah, me either.
playing against the pedestrian muggles versus playing with your friends is. I was telling Randy, it's like I hadn't played a game that was more than just 2 people since we've started playing, Rocket League and Borderlands, and I can't remember the last time I played something that had 3 people or more in it, and it might have been with people that I knew. I mean, I guess I was playing Rocket League online, but with people that I knew, and it's like, this is fun. I'd forgotten how much fun this is.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The positive social aspects of it and stuff, and being in a guild and all that stuff. That was good. I always ended up being like, suddenly somebody would want to make me an officer of the guild, and then somebody would like, okay, now you're co-owner, and then like, oh, well, I have to do this other thing, so now this is your guild now. I was like, wait, what? I didn't sign up for any of this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was the thing is when we were playing WoW in particular, I think that's when I was a manager, and it was just like I got zero ability to manage anybody else. That's what I'm doing all day. It's like managing people's drama is not how I want to spend my evenings. Yeah, we
LAN
keep
parties
talking
for
about
Quake
doing
too.
that. Yeah. Yeah, so JC, when he was little, he was actually some of those LAN parties that Parfy used to put together. He actually attended some of those.
That's the one you keep talking about, the King of the Hill card game or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and then we
that.
ended up having one because Parfy, he was working for a tech company, and they were able to, you'd get together on a Friday, bring all your computers, and that's back when you were using like RG45 internet cables, which were like like this big, and so you didn't have cards for those because they were only for like business situations. So you'd come over, they'd put a card in there, you're actually changing jumpers for IRQs and DMAs because of the conflicts and all that stuff that you'd have in your computer. You're setting the channels, you had to do all that stuff manually. So all that stuff you'd spend Friday just troubleshooting and trying to get the network up, everybody's computer onto the network. And then Saturday you'd play all day Saturday, and then you'd tear down on Sunday. And the first one I think I played was Doom. I think or it was Doom or Quake, one of the first ones, and then Doom 2 and Quake with Capture the Flag, Quake 2, And so we went to, I think the first one I did was just like a 4-man with Parfy. And then, we started doing 8-mans. He had a friend that had a house out in Groveport. It had a real big room. And so then we would start having like 10. And then one of the guys worked someplace where we could rent a space. And so we did a couple 20s. I think that might have been the first time that JC had attended, was one of those. And then at one point we had gotten our group to merged with a couple other groups, and they ended up renting a banquet hall and it was probably about 150 people, over 150 people at that LAN party. And that was crazy because they had to figure out, like, you couldn't overload the outlets, so they only wanted so many computers connected per outlets, and they ran all the Ethernet cable custom. So that was nuts, but it worked. It was, they were able to make it work. But it's just crazy. It's like, we're going to come in for a weekend, set up a custom network, and then tear it down on Sunday. But those were fun times. And we do keep talking about it. The cable modem, that was all pre-cable modem, so cable modem killed those. And the thing was too, is like, when you were doing that, like, those were CRT monitors, right? So your monitor, which was the most probably expensive component of your computer at that time, it weighed like 80 pounds, and you just knew that you were going to drop it. It was so nice when I think barely did we get to use maybe flat screen monitors. Like, maybe like once I got to do a LAN party with a flat screen monitor. Most of the time it was those huge ass CRTs, and they would have been like 15 inches or something, 16-inch CRT. It weighed like 80 pounds. Those things are crazy.
I got some info about World of Warcraft here that's interesting.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, so World of Warcraft, massively multiplayer online role-playing game, MMORPG, was released in 2004 by Blizzard Entertainment. It was the 4th released game set in the Warcraft fantasy universe.
True.
And it was the first multiplayer, massively multiplayer.
The other ones were like real-time strategy collection games, like
they were
or Starscape.
Totally different.
Yeah.
But it was the same universe.
The same universe, yep.
Yeah, World of Warcraft takes place within the Warcraft world of Azeroth, approximately 4 years after the events at the conclusion of Blizzard's previous Warcraft release, Warcraft 3: The Frozen Throne. The game was announced in 2001 and was released for the 10th anniversary of the Warcraft franchise on November 23rd, 2004. Since launch, World of Warcraft has had 8 major expansion packs produced for it: The Burning Crusade, which we played, The Wrath of the Lich King, which we played, and Cataclysm, which I played at least part of.
Yep.
Mists of Pandaria was right after I stopped playing.
That was the one that added the Kung Fu Pandas.
Yeah. Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth, and Shadowlands. Now here you go. World of Warcraft was the world's most popular MMORPG by player count of nearly 10 million in 2009.
10 million people.
So it was released in 2004. By 2009, it had 10 million players. The game had a total of over 100 million registered accounts by 2014. By 2017, the game had grossed over 9.23 billion in revenue, making it one of the highest grossing video game franchises of all time. At BlizzCon 2017, a vanilla version of the game titled Warcraft Classic was announced, which planned to provide a way to experience the base game before any of its expansions launched. It was released in August of 2019. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
9.23 billion in revenue.
Billion. Well, that was the thing too. That was the first. EverQuest was the first game that I remember.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Computer, please stop. Where there was a subscription to it, right? We didn't even talk about that. It was like, I gotta buy this game and then I gotta pay to play it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a concept that was a hard sell That was a hard sell. And it was because of the LAN parties actually that I got into it, because I can remember being at one of the LAN parties during that, like one of the lunch breaks, people talking about it, and even some people were playing it at one of the LAN parties, and which is crazy that they could even do that. That meant that they would have been able
I remember
to
the first time at work you were talking about it, and you're like, yeah, I pay for this subscription to play this game. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That is crazy. I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
that's true. It would be one of the gods, and the internet gaming would be would be one of the modern gods. That's funny. It's a good book. Randy, I think we're at our 2 o'clock hour here. And I've ran out of stuff to work on here other than just moving some paintbrushes around. So I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap it up today. Do you have anything else that before we go, any topics that you wanted to touch upon?
I can save it. I had some interesting information about Voyager 2 and stuff along those lines.
Cool.
And a quandary or two.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to, write it down so you don't forget it, or send it to me, and I'll write it down and put it on the stuff, and we'll pick that up on next time. And then tomorrow we'll have our Johnny Q jukebox. I am, like I said, I'm trying to figure out some ways to reincorporate some of the footage that we're doing during the stream for videos. So I might work on some of that tomorrow. I'm not sure. So we might be a computer-based session tomorrow. But either way, we'll have our Johnny Q jukebox going, where we stream MP3 singles on random shuffle. I think that's all that I have. So we will leave with the doctor's promise, which is never cowardly, never cruel, never give up, never give in, never surrender. Randy, anything else?
I want to ask. I got. Are you guys available for playing any computer tonight or tomorrow, possibly?
Oh, yeah, I could be. Tater, are you able to do any computer playing? If not, we'll hit him up on the Discord and see. He is. All right. So yeah.
Sweet. Sounds good.
All right. Cool.
Look forward to that.
All right. I look forward to that as well, my friends. Ready. So, yep. Be good, everybody, and we will hit that funky outro music. Bow.
Love yourselves, love one another.
Bow. Bow. Bow.